Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. And we're live, coming into your cars and living rooms and spaceships. Hardcore Marketing Show. Exciting to announce my guest today. Really excited. We're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna try our best, both of us, to keep it on target. But you know how this goes. We're gonna go on tangent. I can't wait to go on 1,000 tangents. This is gonna be good. This is a data. This is an analytics. This is a futuristic show. That is a theme today. My guest, he's an analytics entrepreneur. He's an author. He's written 3 books on analytics. He just breathes the stuff. So to the point where he's going to talk about how AI comes into play with that. So author, professor, Harvard Innovation Lab, VIP, co-founder, president, and CTO of Squark, which we'll talk about. Judah Phillips, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Casey. Thanks for having me aboard. I'm very excited to be on the show today.
Man, I'm excited to learn from you here today and probably talk about 1,000 other things at the same time.
Likewise.
Have a grand old time.
Yep.
Friday.
Definitely.
It's Friday for us, so anyone listening on a Tuesday can be like, well, I could pretend like it's a Friday. So if it's not Friday today, it is for the next hour or so for you listening to this. So, hey, let's get right into it. We're going to talk analytics, data, even AI and futuristic marketing. Smash for me some bogus strategy. Here you go. This is Thor's hammer. So take that.
I'm taking it.
Yes, the hammer. And smash some bogus marketing strategy, some myths you've heard out there. Maybe it's around reporting or analytics even.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, I've got a grip on the hammer. Let me start swinging it now. I'm in the process of smashing it. The first thing I would smash is this overemphasis in belief in KPIs and dashboards. Now, don't get me wrong, KPIs and dashboards are helpful, but they're descriptive and diagnostic, sometimes leading indicators, but mostly lagging indicators of your business performance. And marketers are being asked to look at these dashboards and KPIs that may just be data tables. They may have some fancy visualizations and determine how to drive their business forward.
Right.
The myth, though, is that, how do you do that when you're looking backwards to drive forwards, right? KPIs and dashboards are like, driving your car forward while looking in the rear view mirror.
Oh, yeah. That's not going to work very well.
It's not going to work very well. So you got to kind of smash this myth that, dashboards and KPIs alone in time series charts and trend lines and the awesome related visualizations that result are actually going to fully help you drive your marketing outcomes and your marketing performance. They're helpful, Casey. Don't get me wrong. They're helpful, right? But they're not the end all and be all. There's a lot more out there today that can help.
Tell me about leading and lagging indicators. I think this is a really important concept, but we should all get just super familiar on.
Yeah. So like a leading indicator is something that, is indicating or letting you know that something may be likely to happen in the future, right? So for example, if you start to see a lot of traffic to your website or traffic to your landing page, right? You hope that's an indicator, like a leading indicator, that there's going to be some conversion, right?
Right.
When you start to think of the marketing life cycle, things like, we'll talk a little bit pie in the sky theory here, right?
Yeah.
People become, activated, right, for a purchasing need, whether it's B2B or B2C. And then they start to consider, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And maybe they have some favorability, right? And then they kind of get into an acquisition and, conversion and behavior, retention, loyalty, that's the type of funnel. So leading indicator is letting you know that somebody is kind of approaching that tipping point where there's something that's going to happen that's valuable, right? That there's a lot of traffic coming to your landing page, and that's good because it's a leading indicator that somebody's going to convert, hopefully.
Right.
Now, a lagging indicator, is kind of like conversion, right? It's already happened,
Right.
Conversion might be a leading indicator for, future revenue, but so sometimes metrics can be either or both, right? But what
Right.
we really try hard to do is identify, those that are most important to the business in these dashboards, and they're often just a smattering of multiple different metrics at different granularities that are attempting to kind of give you the tea leaves at the bottom of the cup, and you're left to like
Right.
predict the future on that.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not completely disdaining the KPI or the dashboarding approach, or looking at leading and lagging indicators if they truly are so. But that's just one modality to run your marketing business with.
Right. Right. So, and I'm thinking, lagging indicators, like you had this amount of sales last month,
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas a leading indicator could be one of many things, but it might be, like you said, website visits, or it might even be, new leads captured, or something further on that may eventually convert, or even new opportunities created in some sense could be like, this is what we're looking at going forward, as opposed to this happened in the past.
Correct. And when you start to look at the research coming out from various analyst firms, they, and I know this research, so this is Gartner, it's probably about a year and a half old though, but something like 74% of companies were doing descriptive analytics.
What's that?
Descriptive is, just describing what happened, right? In the
Oh,
past, like, this happened, that happened, and here's how many times something happened. Here's the frequency of that happening again. Descriptive. It was something like 31% or so, and I'm sure this has gone up since this research
sure.
came out. At least I'd hope so. We're doing diagnostic analysis, right? That as a result of this data, right, I can diagnose the problem, like high bounce rate, right? Your landing pages suck, right? So I know that's such a simple and quotidian everyday metric these days, but the idea of using data not just to describe what has happened, but to diagnose why something's happening. Right.
Right.
And these are kind of insights can come from that, but these are largely backward looking indicators on things to describe and to diagnose based on what's happened in the past. Right.
Right.
Where, when I started to really focus my career on, machine learning and AI, it was because I was, honestly kind of getting tired of doing digital analytics and telling people much of the same stuff over and over again. I
Right.
realized that kind of half of the rubric, the descriptive and diagnostic, was reaching a point where in order to take the next necessary actions, you needed more. And so on the other side of that coin, there's the predictive, right, and the prescriptive. The idea of predictive being predicting, well, how many new marketing qualified leads are we going to have next month, right?
Right.
And then the prescriptive being, knowing that we're going to have these predictions, what do we do about them? What do we do next, or what action do we take as a result of these prescriptions or predictions, excuse me. So when you start to look at the research, shockingly, only, again, according to Gartner, a couple of years, a year and a half old, 10% of companies are doing a prediction, despite all the hype, right? Despite all the stuff you hear about predictive analytics and its importance, only 1 every 10. And then when you start to look at prescription, where we may have multiple predictions and we need to pick the best one, or we need to figure out the next best action, it was something like 1 in 100. So a lot of the projects around prediction and prescription outside of the really large companies, I think are, either just getting off the ground or they're largely aspirational. And, I started solving for that a couple of years ago, right?
Got
With
it.
Squark in my current company. So, I think when you're looking at those leading and lagging indicators and describing and diagnosing things, and you're just looking at KPIs and dashboards, to your point about dispelling the myths, smashing it even further into pieces with Thor's hammer, right? You have to start thinking, what comes after that, right? And that's
Right.
prediction and prescription. And that's something that, in marketing, we talk about a lot, but clearly
Yeah.
the research indicates not a lot of people are doing.
Definitely talk. Marketers like to talk and write content or
So
speak
do analysts, yeah.
content. Oh yeah, so do analysts.
Yeah.
And this is the way to go. This is the future, but they're not actually doing it. In my head, as you're home, I think one of the reasons is sometimes we just aren't clear on what the definitions you just described, and we think, oh, hey, here's my lead count. This is my lead count on my leads, and you're not looking at it in the context of a larger thing. You're just looking in the past. you may not know that you're actually looking at lagging indicators. You may think that's some futuristic prescriptive thing, but really it isn't. So I think we're like unclear. And I thought about like casinos. I think it's a roulette, right? So you you can walk around, but they always have these boards. Have you seen those? Those
Oh yeah, the spinning wheels.
well, so yeah, they have the spinning wheels, but they tend to have these number boards up right next to them that
Oh
shows
yes, yes.
all the numbers that were previously landed, whether it was black or red, and what numbers came up, as if
As
there's
if,
a
exactly.
bunch of red that don't worry, a bunch of red has happened. Do whatever you want with that information, but it actually means nothing to
I
what will
mean
happen
something.
in the future.
Correct.
And so I think
Yeah,
sometimes people think it does, and so they're like, "Oh, well, we had a bunch of white, so we should probably put one on red here. It's gonna
it's a good
log your number."
analogy. Now when I go to the casinos, which are few and far between, unless I'm in Vegas or
Big
down Rhode
Pippin
Island,
with your limo.
I guess, yeah, exactly. I guess where we live, in Boston, Casey, we're gonna have a casino soon. But my game is baccarat, right? That's what I really like to
Oh
do,
man, you're
and
like James Bond over here.
that's actually probably why I played it.
That's
One
totally
time,
why you play it.
yeah, without a doubt, it's maybe the reason I like Vespers. On a total digression, one time I did go to Lisbon. I spoke at a conference called ICOM, the International Conference for Online Media Measurement,
Ooh,
and it was in the Casino Estoril, which is Estoril is a small town outside of Lisbon, and the Casino Estoril is the largest casino in Europe, as I understand it,
whoa!
and it is next to a hotel called the Hotel Palacio. So let me tell you why I'm telling you all this. So the Hotel Palacio is where Ian Fleming apparently created James Bond in the hotel lobby bar there. Portugal at the time was a neutral state, I guess, in World War II, and so it was rife with espionage. This bar was filled with Axis and Allied powers, and Ian Fleming kind of saw this espionage and created this idea of James Bond. And I believe actually one of the early James Bond films with Sean Connery was filmed in the Hotel Palacio. Now let me turn it, right to the modern day. The Casino Estoril. Can you think of any of the recent James Bond movie titles? Casino Royale, right?
Yeah.
So that was the Casino Royale. So without a doubt, I'm influenced by James Bond and probably why I play baccarat. But to your point, people say, do you bank on the player or the banker? Who do you bet on, right? You pay a little bit more when you bet on the banker. And people like to sit there with their pencils and pens and write down, like, is it player banker, as if to the point of red or black or these numbers that actually is meaningful, when the reality is in gambling, right? These are just independent chances and probability.
Right.
So yeah, it's a good analogy, and that's our first awesome digression. I hope that was interesting for everybody.
Yeah, and many more to come, I hope. I mean, James Bond,
Yeah.
the original. Did you happen to wear a tuxedo to that event? Because that would have been perfect.
No, I didn't, but there was a formal gala dinner with apparently a Michelin, starred chef, and there were
Wow.
some folks in tuxedos, but
Little black tie, and
I
put
think
your
I
hand
think
in
I
your
had
pocket. All the security will go crazy.
that's right. I had more of the Silicon Valley jeans, button up and a
Got
silver
it. Like,
jacket,
yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
I don't think I had on the Bruins hat as
Where
I
am I today? I don't even know.
That's right. That's right.
Got it. So yeah, so they're confused or something, and not even realizing the future tense versus the past tense. And I get it. You got bored. You've written 3 books, and you're working
Yep.
in analytics, and it's like, we're looking in the past. This is boring, right? Like, it's already happened. Where's the guesswork? Where's the fun? You're not gambling or betting on anything. You're not trying to figure anything out. It's not hard. You're just reporting what happened.
Yeah, and what really, digital analytics became was a lot about, getting the data collection right. Right.
Yeah.
And then these sort of, back in the day, there was this idea the analyst would be able to, tell you what to do with your business. And let's face it, like the management and the leaders of the business, use data and a constellation of other points to, determine what they do. They're not looking for the, analyst to, kind of tell them what to do, right? They may
Right.
want a suggestion. They may like say, what do you think, right? But ultimately, they want the data to be able to make that decision. And so I started thinking, well, what's a better way to do that? And, prediction and prescriptions,
Yeah.
clearly a better way to do that. The idea being, if you can predict what's going to happen in your business in the future, well, you can make better decisions about what
Hell
to
yeah.
do now, right?
Right.
And that's going to be infinitely more helpful than looking in the back, right, in the back window, or looking in the rearview mirror and trying to drive forward. Let's use prediction so that we can keep our profile, our eyes looking directly ahead, right, at the road ahead of us, steering in the right direction, kind of knowing, hey, I've got to take an exit in 2 miles, or, hey, look, there's an accident up ahead. I need to go take this different road.
Right.
Prediction gives you the traffic conditions and the state of what's coming up ahead,
Right.
before right? You don't want to be looking in the rearview mirror and driving into the telephone pole around that corner, right?
Well, that example is so it makes total sense. Like, you can't possibly drive the car looking backwards. It's just not going to work unless you're on the highway. Maybe it's a straight road in Illinois, but other than that, those set conditions.
You're on autopilot in your Tesla or something like
yeah,
that. Sure. But again, that's prediction right there, because it's predicting, when it needs to stop, turn, or
yeah, you're not predicting, but it's predicting. Yeah,
it's the AI.
So, maybe this is another myth then too. What does it take to do that? Do you need wizards and high towers, analysts, data scientists in thousands of data points? What does it take to do that?
So that's another great question. So, this is going to require me to talk a little bit about, my thesis and why me and my co-founder Dan created Squark, Squark. So squarkai.com. If you go to squark.ai, you'll also find it as well. But, several years ago, before the hype around AI or machine learning, both Dan and I realized, being, experts and analytics practitioners, or supposed experts, and definitely analytics, supposed, and definitely
still out. Well, I'll let you know the show.
Thanks. You can't really call yourself that, so that's why I say,
or a guru.
Or yeah. Other people say that about you, but we're supposedly, me and Dan, we've been around the block, and we kind of know this stuff pretty well. But we started to think of, like, what was difficult in our careers. What was difficult? Dan ran a really large agency around BI, consulting shop.
Nice. I thought you were going to say hedge fund, but agency works.
Yeah, no, agency, more like you guys, more like you. And my background is, I've had a boutique consultancy in analytics, and I've worked with the biggest brands in the world, and then I worked at brands in earlier parts of my careers. For example, I ran analytics globally at monster.com, every site worldwide, back when it had Super Bowl ads, and, blimps, and stadiums were named after, right? In the boom days. We had, nearly 100 million unique visitors, and we had, terabytes or even petabytes of data, and we didn't call it big data. And we had, the SaaS team reported into me for a while, not the whole time. And we didn't call it data science, right? But we were exposed, and I think Dan was saying, we were exposed to lots of different things. And so when we, got together, we decided to create a capability for democratizing, data science.
Right.
And we started with machine learning. And
because do you normally need a lot for that?
Well, data or money or resources?
All the above. Like, normally you need 1,000 data points. It has to all be clean. You need a data scientist to read the tea leaves.
Well, so there's a lot of, it depends. That's the MBA answer question, right? Depending on use cases and stuff. But if I was picking up, Thor's hammer again,
pick up the hammer.
I think that would be another myth that I would smash, is that, you need a lot of data, or you need a lot of clean data to do AI, or to do machine learning, if you will. And so, before we go there, what Dan and I, we decided to do was create a capability for, non-technical users, for business people, for, quote unquote, citizen data scientists. These are people who have knowledge of data and, their business and some of what you can do with data, but they don't necessarily have the hardcore, data science knowledge, right? The PhD information. Exactly. Yeah, totally. Pun intended, right? And so they can't code, right? Or they don't have, fluency in, all the different languages or algorithms. So we wanted to provide and create a capability where they could simply upload their data, pick their targets, so their dependent variable, what they wanted to predict, and then pick their predictors or their independent variables, and very quickly get the best quality predictions. Now, it's taken us a couple years to kind of build it out, but now we're going gangbusters. So
is it the point where it's so easy a Casey could do it?
Yes, sir.
A
Yeah, you
Viking
bet.
version of me?
Yeah. Even like a miniaturized Viking version of you could do it as
Nice.
long as you could drag that mouse. But
Yes.
100%.
Okay.
For example, we have customers who literally take their Salesforce leads table and the wins and losses historically, they drag and drop it into the tool. Uh, and then at the next step, they drag in the new leads, the ones that they want to predict might be MQLs or SQOs, depending on the data they have, how they label their historic data, their training data, and then we build the best possible model and run the data that you've uploaded and give you the predictions in minutes.
Right.
So uh, you know, beating hand-coded models, doing more with less, right? Than say even Salesforce or Pardot do with Pardot. Excuse my Massachusetts accent there as I drop
I
the
was gonna
R's.
call it Pardo.
Uh,
Marketers
no,
won't pick on you. Yeah.
no, we won't Francophile it. But Pardot, a lot more than what Einstein, is capable of doing, right?
Right. Okay.
And so so even if you look at what Salesforce and Pardot is doing with Einstein, right? They're kind of limiting the amount of data you can run. They're not allowing you to kind of pick the columns you want to include. It's kind of all or nothing. They're not really giving you a high quality, well, I can't say high quality. They're not really giving you a detailed assessment of which variables, which columns in your data or features in your data are important. And they're certainly not applying machine learning to your data, right? It's general linear models. It's the logistic
So let's break that
regression.
down. Like, what you are the guy to ask this. What is machine learning?
It's
Right.
a great question. So there's two types of machine learning.
Okay.
There's unsupervised machine learning,
Huh.
and these are, and there's supervised machine learning.
Got it.
So supervised machine learning is what Squark does, and what you would traditionally consider AI, right? In unsupervised machine learning is what other people do. We actually have some capabilities to do unsupervised machine learning that exist on a separate
But like
platform.
just at a even higher
Just at
level.
a higher level. So supervised machine learning is where you're learning from data representations, where you're learning from labeled data through a process called training. So for example, if I had my leads table and I have all this information about my leads, and historically I've known whether they've won or lost, they've converted or not, they've
Yeah.
become MQLs or not, I can learn from all of that information and the properties and the patterns in it. And I can have an algorithm, have an intelligence build me a model, right?
Mm.
That I can then run against new data that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if they're going to convert. I don't know if they're to become the right type of lead. And then I can get a probability score, right? Which sounds similar to
Right.
what Einstein is doing with its lead scoring or behavior scoring, but supervised machine learning doesn't just include general linear models like Salesforce or Pardot is doing right now. I think it's just logistic and linear regression.
Got it.
A supervised machine learning capability would include all sorts of fancy things that most people have never heard of, like, deep learning is something most people have heard of now, but
Deep
for
learning.
deep learners, deep learning. Or things like different tree models, distributed random forest, or stochastic gradient descent models like XGBoost and stuff like this. I know this is
Man.
like
It's
super
like
geek stuff,
yeah, it's like
but
going to
this
engineering
is
school.
what Squark does on Salesforce data that Salesforce doesn't do on its own data. It's doing like
Got it.
MATLAB and Minitab, like classical statistical modeling, right? And they even told us this yesterday, right? They don't have learning per se in the product yet, but they do a lot of probability scoring. So
Got it.
not to digress too
So
much, is
so
supposed
yeah,
to do.
supervised was, hey, this is what works, this is what doesn't work. Figure out the patterns, go to
It's
town.
learning. Learning,
Unsupervised, you're like
task focused. So
jump.
unsupervised, an unsupervised machine learner or a capability would focus on a task, and it would change the way it works based on the data you introduce to it, but it doesn't have that learning component. An example of that might be clustering. So think about if I wanted to do clustered data sets together. Maybe I had surveys and people who took surveys and their responses. Well, I could run a clustering algorithms, like a
Mm.
k nearest neighbor, a k meteoids, a k a k means clustering model, and I
Hmm.
could determine which of the answers are most in common with other answers across the survey. Or even a simpler example would be like a traditional market basket analysis. So, retailers do this all the time. They want to know, if somebody buys bread, do they buy butter or do they buy milk, right?
Or peanut butter.
Or peanut butter, right?
Yeah.
Affinity analysis allows you to understand the co-occurrences of items, right? Whereas a clustering analysis allows you to understand the co-occurrences of data sets. So that type of task-focused, outcome where you're introducing new data to the algorithm and it's doing the clustering differently or doing the affinity differently, is unsupervised, where you're taking labeled data that has known outcomes from the past and you're learning from it to be able to build a model to predict. That's supervised. And that's, if you think of what does a car have to do? So a car has to remember, right? Or it has to know that that's a stop sign. It has to know that that's a human. It has to know that these are the roads.
Oh, like a programmed one?
Like a programmed car, an autonomous vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Of course, an autonomous vehicle. So supervised machine learning is part of how autonomous vehicles are trained.
Got it.
And then there's a whole bunch of different algorithms underlying these various approaches. The big hype these days is you read all about deep learning.
Yeah. What's the deal on that? What is that? What is deep learning?
Deep learning, fundamentally is, it's supervised machine learning. It's representing the learning and decisioning process in the same way that a human brain works. So if, this gets into the geeky stuff, but, there's neurons and there's, layers, input and output, and hidden layers within a neural network. And it's an attempt by, computational experts to mimic, the way biology works and neurons in the brain and decisioning works. And the reality is, like, even the best deep learning experts don't really have 100% clue of how we're making these decisions. It's certainly all math-based, but even surfacing things like which neurons are most important in your neural network is a very, very difficult problem.
So as long as the guys doing deep learning don't hang out with the guys from Boston Robotics, then we'll be good, right?
Yeah. Well, there's different types of neural networks too. So when we start to talk about machine vision, we're looking at convolutional neural networks where, are different than, say, like a feed forward deep learner that's like a multi-layer perceptron. This is super geek stuff. I don't want to bore everybody with it, but a convolutional neural network would be what we use for image and video recognition, where, there's something like a recurrent neural network that's really good for like temporal data. This is called an RNN. And then perhaps some of you guys have seen the deep fakes where, you have Donald Trump saying Obama things or Obama saying Donald Trump things, right? You know what I'm talking about?
The videos where the mouths are moving and a person actually didn't say any of that.
Correct. And so generative adversarial networks like GANs are, the technology that are partly used to do that. So, this whole idea of deep learning or neural networking has a lot of different types and styles, and more are coming out in the research, institutions probably every day.
Right.
So, deep learning is something that people talk a lot about.
Why? Why do they talk a lot about it? Because all I was able to basically get from that is that it's really complicated. It's based on math and neurons.
Well, you're asking me, so I'll probably overcomplicating it as I.
Well, no, that's fine. But what's the implication? Like, where does this and even the future? Where does that? What do you see? You've got this knowledge and where this is going, this technology. What comes out of this?
Well, I think the whole idea of the Elon Musk dystopia is completely overrated. I think what's underrated is
that's heresy, man.
Such is life. Yes, such is life.
How so is it overrated?
Because the idea of having a singularity or an omniscient intelligence, like that's just saying? The dystopia, right? It's overrated. The dystopia, that AI is going to take all our jobs and imprison us and create Terminators and Skynet.
He's
that is
definitely
just
worried about that. Yeah,
and
to smoke weed on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Which we're not doing here.
No.
But we're going to talk about some equally deep subjects, right?
That's right. So we're drinking water here.
We're drinking coffee over here. So
it's a hardcore marketing show. I don't know.
It is hardcore.
So Office Complex would appreciate it, though.
There's, Musk is sort of saying, we've got to, prevent the world from being destroyed by AI. And I understand where he's coming from because, I remember in the 90s when people were talking about Operation Echelon and the global surveillance network, everybody's paranoid that, we're going to have no freedom as the result. It hasn't come to light. As a matter of fact, the trickle down of technology has probably made us more autonomous in some countries and maybe less so in others. So I think it's going to depend a lot on government and regulation and not just on innovation. So for example, like people, there are knife makers, right? And people stab each other. They don't blame the knife maker. I mean, when you start talking about weapons and guns, right, there's a whole political argument there.
Same thing with AI then.
People kill people with a lot of different things. And yeah, certainly AI can be used to do better drone image recognition and targeting and stuff like that for governments. And, it's kind of outside of the topic of this. But, obviously any technology can be used for doing bad. But I think, that there's a lot of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt around AI right now. And the reality is AI is in the short term and maybe the medium term, and as Maynard Keynes says, long term, we're all dead. So in the medium and short term, I think it's going to be, for us, it's going to be an augmenter, right? Machine intelligence is going to augment we marketers to be able to make better decisions about our business, to be able to focus on the data and the outcomes that matter, and just to be able to, steer looking forward into that windshield as opposed to looking backward in the rearview mirror. And I keep using that metaphor. So the idea of, human augmentation with AI, that's really underrated. So the idea that, not only can I predict which leads are going to convert, right? I can then predict which offers to send them in a multi-class classification out of the 20 offers. Or, I'm a retailer and I have loyalty card information. Now I can predict, do predictive segmentation and predict what, say trip type is going to be taken. So for example, Walmart uses multinomial classification to predict which of 48 different trip types someone is going to be, right, before they walk into the store. It's good to know, right?
48 different, what's the deal with this? They have 48?
So this is supposedly. So, and I've seen some of this data. It's publicly available. You can look at it.
It's not something you got off some, dark website and
no.
Here in the hardcore marketing show.
No,
Tell me about it.
I've never actually used Tor.
I haven't either.
And I kind of missed the boat on crypto, though a friend of mine who did use Tor and did buy crypto made a boatload of money that has since kind of,
as long as you didn't buy anything on Silk Road.
Who knows? I didn't ask. I wouldn't expect that, but he had the crypto a long time ago. But we digress. What was your question again, Casey?
Walmart.
Walmart, yeah. So
trip types?
48, like, are you a grocery shopper? Are you a school shopper? Are you a weekly shopper? Are you a daily shopper? Are you a clothes shopper? So, Walmart can use machine learning to predict based on purchase data, SKUs, other things like perhaps the PPI, the CPI, the cost of gas, like, what trip are you likely to take next? And if they can predict that across, their retail, going audience, right? In-store going audience. Well, they can make better decisions if they know in a certain geography, the majority of these people are looking for groceries, or, they can figure out seasonality better if they start to see a preponderance of school shoppers predicted to come in.
Sure, they can plan their store design too, and where things are placed to make it either harder or easier for you.
Absolutely. There's a whole bunch of companies that are using video and tracking how people move around in the store using Wi-Fi signals and cameras to determine, like, what are the optimal paths you walk through in a store to maximize, what people put in their basket and, average order value. Or
right. I've seen that in airports, but stores make so much more different. Yeah.
Yeah. A few different companies I'm aware of that are doing that right now and doing real innovative things. And some of them are taking the not to digress too much, but they're taking that digital analytics approach where think about, you have a landing page, which is like the way you get into your store. And then you have a click stream, right? You click through different pages or through different events that allow you to get to the point of where you're putting something in your shopping cart and you're buying. Well, if you can think of somebody going to a store and doing something similar, right? Where they're the landing page is the entrance, the pages are the aisles, right? The shopping cart, right, is obviously the shopping cart. That predates the internet, I think. And you're putting stuff in your basket. You're keeping track of that with sensors, or it's tied back to your loyalty card. And then you have to pick a line, right? And you have to wait. and then you go through it and you convert. So there's a lot of, commonality with some of the digital ways behaviors measured that then can be put on top of a retail store environment and understood in similar ways. And there's some folks out there doing that right now. So so Walmart does apparently do that, and there's some public data.
Like buyer personas at Walmart. Who would have thought? Smart.
Yeah, but exactly. But using data that a marketer typically wouldn't have the ability to, or would be difficult to include.
Interesting. Like what? Like just what you bought, what you picked up.
The price of oil, right? As I was mentioning, like price index, like what the weather is within the last couple days. Lots of categorical.
That's the next level. That's like next level of that.
And that's what the machine learning and AI essentially can help you do. So instead of just doing a forecast with a bunch of revenue or lead numbers on a time series, I can take in a whole bunch of other data into a model and consider categories of things and other different data as relevant, right? So instead of just saying, oh, here's our store sales, and based on that I'm going to forecast this, I can use buyer persona information at the detail level, or I could use other transactional information about the products or the categories or the stores, or what's happening in the macroeconomic environment, or really anything that you believe to be causative, right? Anything you believe to be a leading indicator to what you're trying to predict, put it in the model, and let the algorithm sort it out. Which kind of which brings me to the point about, does the data need to be clean? Now, any model, garbage in, garbage out. But the reality with machine learning is that if you have a Squark, or you have a data scientist who actually knows how to do this stuff, you'll be able to identify which variables are most important in your data, right? And let's put it this way: if you have a column of data that you believe to be causative and it's full of a bunch of garbage, it's really unlikely that it's going to come up as one of the most important variables statistically that are important to what you're trying to predict, right? So even machine learning, again, garbage in, garbage out, but even machine learning can help you perhaps identify where you might have a need to clean some of that data, because what you believe to be causative actually isn't showing up as causative, and maybe that's the fact, it just isn't causative, and it disrupts your human generated belief, or maybe it's just a column of crappy data, right? And
it has that influence over it, though. It makes sense to be aware of that.
That's right.
Well, I like the fact that we're talking about it's augmented intelligence. I think AI got picked up quick by marketing to say, like, oh, we've all got AI, but it's not Skynet. It's not data from the start, the Starship Enterprise. But it can help us. So I could see there being a little bit of that, I don't want to say backlash, but AI, but yet it's not a autonomous sentient being, and people being like, what's this malarkey? But no, it's that augmented intelligence side of it. Which is the sky's the limit on that side.
Yeah. So, we look at it at structured data. There's a lot of data in spreadsheets, that people have mastery over. And, if you can identify an outcome you want to predict, and you can very quickly, drag and drop it into a SAS.
Right.
And then all the work that a data scientist would normally done is abstracted and done behind the scenes for you, with more algorithms, with more technique automatically applied to get, the best quality predictions. Well, that's a win for a lot of marketers. And that is essentially what we're solving for, and having a lot of great success doing it. So it's an exciting time to be in AI. And, can I do another digression here?
Yeah. Does it involve Star Wars or anything cool like that?
It actually is kind of cool like that.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do it.
So we'll do this digression. So the idea of, human augmentation and non-dystopias, and, helping people make better decisions. Well, I was on a panel in Boston at General Assembly, which is a lifelong, adult education institute.
I've been there. Some cool sessions. Absolutely.
Super cool. They, if you want to become a product manager and you're an engineer, you're a product manager, you want to become an engineer or a data scientist, they will, teach you a curriculum and get you on the path to doing that. And I know it's helped a lot of people. Great company.
Is it just in Boston?
That's a great question. I actually think they might have a national or maybe even a global presence at this point.
It's called General Assembly.
General Assembly, yeah.
Okay, cool.
And they're also generous with the community as they, allow you to kind of rent out or hook you up with spaces. So
yeah,
I got involved with a group in Boston, and they invited me to be on a panel. And so there was a panel of, it was me, right? The chief architect of Wayfair, which is,
Oh, wow.
great Boston, global e-commerce success story, right? 5,500 people in Copley Place, 13,000 people all over the world, a zillion things, right? Very cool company. And they had a great guy, their chief architect, Ben Clark there. And then Microsoft's product manager for Azure machine learning, not a data scientist, right? But like a product manager at Microsoft. His name was Goikin, very, very brilliant guy. And then the CEO and co-founder of a company called Tala, which has a workflow capability that involves AI, and a moderator. So we're up, in front on some stools. We're, about 20 minutes into what was supposed to be an hour-long panel with a 30-minute discussion, when a gentleman in the audience stood up and started, exclaiming rather passionately and loudly and really screaming and shouting with quite a bit actually of lunacy, that all of us were, killers and terrorists because we're AI executives.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So we got protested. And this guy was sort of saying, AI can be used in these dystopian ways to do this stuff. And, I can't say that, he's wrong, right? Because, like I said, knives can be used for a lot of different things besides cutting your sandwich, right? But he was very adamant that, AI is going to destroy everything. And, it's kind of off the wall. So, I tried to engage.
What was that like? You're just like, that doesn't happen at business events either, right? Like,
no, I've spoken about 100.
Yeah, marketing event or even a data event, and everyone's just chill. The worst you get is some annoying guy in the back that asks the dumb question that everyone's like, dude, he's trying to pitch his own product while he's asking the question. That's the worst it can get. And then, so this guy stands up, he starts blasting you guys. Were you scared? I'd be like, my arm.
I'll take us out. These are great questions. So, where do I begin to answer? First of all, I've never been protested before, ever. Certainly in a business event like that.
Right.
And, I think it was a rather unrighteous and incorrect assertion that he was making.
Agree.
But I actually probably engaged him a little bit more than I should in retrospect, because I was very happy to, yield the floor and hear his questions and try to answer them with, logic and kind of advance the conversation to move us away from this, BS to be a thing that gets hyped in the media and in certain circles. But he just wasn't having it. He just wanted to rant and rave. I kept trying to give him the floor, or he's trying to defeat him with logic.
So you're trying to debate a crazy person, essentially.
Or he might have been crazy, but he was certainly passionate about it. I would probably lean towards the former. And with
Mr. Passion needs to chill for a second, have a conversation. Maybe he'll learn something for once. Yeah,
that's right. And so
listen to the hardcore marketing show.
Hardcore. Let's be hardcore here. And so what happened was, security got called.
Yeah.
As he's ranting and raving, and security's getting there, people who were sitting around him, right? This is probably like 200 people there, maybe. Wow,
they have security at General Assembly? What is it, Boston PD?
Well, that I'll tell the story.
Okay, sorry. I'm excited. This is cool.
So, security like you'd see in an office building.
Right.
Here with down on the main floor taking IDs, and they got a blue sport jacket on with a little badge. Or
yeah.
That's security. Cops. Yeah, exactly. All cops, yeah, or office building cops, and essentially, as he's ranting and raving, and I could tell that the sort of proctor, maybe the General Assembly proctor, was calling somebody on their cell phone. All the people around this person started to get up and move. So now he's kind of no longer surrounded by people in the rows. He's actually, standing there alone.
Do we get some video? That'd be sick.
I bet there's a video. I haven't asked for it though. But literally, he's got a big trucker hat on, and he's kind of he's pointing at me, and he's ranting and raving. And at this point, I kind of tried not to engage him in dialogue anymore. I think the last thing I said, he was just trying to accuse us of this thing. I said, do you pay taxes? And he's like, yes, yes. And the point I was trying to make is, our tax money is spent in a lot of different ways too, right? So, kind of the abstraction of reality, how far back do you trace, attribution, right? To what he was kind of emphasizing there.
Wow.
But anyway, the security came. He actually tried to I can't say fight off security, but he tried to melee with them a little bit. Yeah, he was pushing them away. And I remember the security guard was, kind of not hugging him, but kind of hovering over him. And this took like 10 minutes. This was a big old scene, right? And eventually he realized the police were on their way and they were either in the building or coming up, and he decided to kind of go with security. And I heard that the police didn't come, but I don't actually know if that was true.
Yeah.
So he exited. And then, we were left, somewhat shell-shocked as to what happened to kind of recover the panel. And so what I did is I turned it into this conversation about ethics in AI.
Oh, okay.
So, we're recording this, on April 5th, on a Friday. I believe that Google just kind of blew up, or no pun intended, Google disintermediated or stopped their AI ethics, group because of, conflicts of interest and stuff. So I tried to move the conversation into ethics with AI. And, as a result, it kind of, it caused me as an AI executive to kind of think, two things. One, we, meaning the AI industry, needs to do a much, much better job of communicating the benefit of these technologies. Like, what Squark does is, take structured data, and soon images and video, right? But structured data right now, and build you the best quality prediction so you can make a decision. Which campaign should I send to this user? Which product should I send? What's the probability of retention or churn? What's the predicted lifetime value, right? We do this in minutes. And these are things that aren't going to destroy the world. If anything, they're going to make customers more joyful. They're going to make marketers more successful. They're going to make companies more money. They're going to cause growth of those companies to hire more people and, improve the GDP, right? AI is going to improve the destinies and the destinies of humanity and destinies of cultures. So, I thought AI, the industry, needs to do a much better job of communicating the positive benefits. It's real easy to scare people and talk about all the negative stuff. It's a lot harder to, explain how this stuff is going to be used in the use cases today in 2019. They're going to help make a difference. Then the other thing I thought is, like, to your point about violence, like, as an AI executive, do I actually want to do, public, non-curated discussions anymore? Like, this is, a great group of folks, that hosted us there. But, it was largely an uncurated list. Like, anybody off the street could have signed up, and shown up there.
It's true.
And that's a little scary. Now, fortunately, we live in Massachusetts, right?
Especially if they saw Terminator, reruns that night before on TNT,
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy people out there and a lot of weapons. But fortunately, where we live in Massachusetts has, some of the strongest gun control laws in the country, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, $1,500 and 5 days of training just to get your FID card, right? To go and hold a gun at Dick's Sporting Goods.
Wait, you mean if you do it legally? Just saying.
Yeah, but yeah. True. Let's assume legality, right? And these people are buying guns on the street. But, as a result, we have fewer gun crimes, right? In Massachusetts, there's less guns on the street. Of course, there's criminal unlicensed guns. So it didn't immediately occur to me, right, that this guy is going to pull out a GAC and start firing at me.
Right.
But it did occur to some of my colleagues in the audience who are a little concerned about that. So, anyway, a great digression here. Related to some of the FUD that gets, pushed out.
If I was there, like, Marine mode would have been kicking in and be like, okay, what am I going to do? Where are the exits? Okay. And then this guy, I'm going to sneak up behind him, throw my arms around him. Just make sure he doesn't have his finger on one of those buttons,
Number one, thank you for your service, Casey. I didn't know you were Marine, so that's pretty awesome.
Wish I was there, man. I would have tackled him for you.
Definitely. You could have taken him out. You could have put on some, you're the real James Bond, clearly.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You could have taken him out, but
that was a horrible Sean Connery.
I think it was also exacerbated by the fact that there was a vendor in there who kind of had a booth, and what they do is they have an AI that will, like, automatically, like, scale up your data center and shut down your data center.
Oh,
And like the tagline was like something on that. It's like, no need to go into your IT war room anymore. And so,
hmm.
that could have set him off. But in terms of AI executives being responsible, like, why do we even have to talk about a war room? I get people have war rooms in IT, but when you're starting to combine, artificial intelligence and war room, the semiotics aren't good, right? The
Right.
sign dignified is just not good. So that could have set him off. But
Sure.
that being said, explaining what AI is and how it can impact marketers and business people beyond the pie in the sky, FUD and high level
Mhm.
use cases is something that the AI industry needs to do a lot better of. And it's like why we created Squark, right? And we're doing it for
Yeah.
businesses and
So who
leaders.
signs up for Squark?
Say, great question.
Yeah.
So we have a bunch of customers at this point.
Like, is it the
So
marketer signing up? Do we need to get IT involved? Who? What
No. So first of
department is
all,
the?
it's a
Yeah.
great question. The business.
Business
So
side. Okay.
marketers, yeah, like, SVPs, VPs of marketers, they use it. They may delegate it to their analysts, but the idea is, there are a lot of marketers who are underserved by their analytics teams. They're underserved by their IT teams,
Or don't have
uh,
one.
or they don't have one, and they don't
Mhm.
have, data scientists or capabilities to do this. And if they can, very quickly uh, create predictions in their business, they believe that they can make better decisions. So Squark
Right.
exists for that. It's like
That's
it's a
cool.
SaaS. We do a free credit card trial. It's very inexpensive at the current time compared to some other folks that might offer. I don't think anyone offers similar capabilities, but of course we have
Yeah.
competitors. And
Oh, it's worth trying things out too.
it's minimal
Get in
cost,
there.
minimal risk, and you're up
Sure.
and running in a minute.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
Exactly.
And that URL
Exactly.
was Squark, SQARK.ai. Did I get
Yep, that's one way to get it. Yeah, squark.ai, or you can go to squarkai.com/free dash
both?
trial. Yeah, we have
Oh,
both.
okay.
Just
Okay.
like
That
you gotta
say
have
that
it.
second one again because that was a good one. You said
Squark AI, so SQUARKAI.com/free dash trial. And
that's cool.
sign up. We prefer not to respond to Gmail addresses, so use your business address, right?
Yeah.
And you basically we give
What
everybody
about
2
Hotmail? What do you do with that?
Hotmail, no. Why don't I do Hotmail?
Just
Yahoo Mail, yeah.
automatically rejected, right?
Well, it depends on the name of the person because we'll look at what the CRM says and we may call them up.
Right,
I've
right. Do a little
signed up on
data.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But the
Enrichment,
idea
data
being,
enrichment.
yeah, exactly. And if your listeners, want, obviously free access we give to anybody, but if they want more time, just tell them when they fill out the form to mention they heard about Squark on the Hardcore Marketing Show, and
On
we'll
the
hook them up
show.
on the show of shows.
Yes. Say hi, right? So, this is really good. And we're going to put these in the show notes as well. But one thing I want to get to was ask you who you are and where you came from. And and guess what? We actually know each other from the past. And I didn't remember this until we just got on here today. But Web Analytics Wednesdays
Yep.
and the DAT and all that. I looked at my email. There's a
Digital
bunch
next
of
Thursday. Yeah, yeah.
old school. We got connected like 2011.
Yep.
Web analytics demystified, with Eric and all of that. So we've kind of been in the same analytics circle for a while. And now we're
Yeah.
back full circle and we look like each other. Imagine that.
We actually do, for those who can see the video. In our prep call, I was unavailable for a video call because of my location, but I looked in the mirror,
Yeah.
as I was looking at the screen, and I said,
That's what I thought.
I looked in the mirror and I saw my beautiful self, and I realized it was you.
Thank you. That
We
is
both have the beards, we both have the hat, we both got the hoodies, and we have
hoodies.
just that little peppering
Classic.
of gray in our beard, right? That denotes the wisdom. But you're absolutely right. I knew your name, and I hadn't had the time to kind of go and dig into it,
Right.
primarily because, it's a memorable name. It's alliteration, right? Casey Cheshire.
Likewise. Yeah, Judith Phillips.
The Cheshire Cat,
Ah,
so
yes, indeed.
completely remembered from
Well
Alice.
played, Shaw.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, back in the day, from about 2006 to 2012 or so, I ran a social networking event in Boston that was focused on like web and digital analytics. It changed
Yeah.
names over the time as the players changed, but it was, we'd get anywhere between. It started with 6 people and it went up to 190 people, and then it was really hard for me to kind of keep it keep it maintained. I didn't earn anything off it ever. I was
Right.
always constantly trying to get like sponsors for it. And it just
Right.
became, kind of something I couldn't continue to focus on with the growth of my businesses and the effort. But I
Totally.
love to reconvene that group at some point, and maybe we can do it under your brand and, sort of the
Can meet up.
hardcore marketing show. I love to do
Yeah,
that
do a
and
little
be
meetup.
activated.
You make it like an alumni weekend. Get all the
Exactly.
analysts back together.
That's right. So to answer your question though, where did I come from?
Yeah, take me
Who
back, like
am I?
little Judah. How did you become
Yeah. So
analytics wizard?
how to become the analytics wizard? Well, first of all, I think anybody who has a perception of success from anyone else has probably failed a lot.
Yeah,
So,
that's probably
right.
true. Yeah.
And so, I've had an interesting career of, some successes and, some failures. And I think, I'm a person who learns from both of those things. And I really think failure is the mother of success. So I think the reason I'm in the position to talk to you today and, have written the 3 books and, I've been, I'm invited to as a professor at these various great schools in Boston is probably because I was willing to put myself out there and take a chance and fail and also succeed and learn from that.
Right.
So I think, who I am is I'm definitely someone who embraces failure and people who have failed in the past. Right. And I see that as the mother of success. I'm sure if you talk to Zuckerberg, the late Jobs or Bezos or Buffett, or Gates, they'd all probably agree, that
Right.
you got to try things. You got to be willing to fail. Obviously, if you're constantly failing, something's a problem.
Yeah.
But you got to be willing to experiment, right? Even with marketers, right? A/B testing, multivariate testing. What you learn in failure of those tests is almost as important as to how well you've done. So knowing that,
Yeah.
back in the day when I was a boy in the 80s, my dad started getting me computers, and I really remember falling in love with the Commodore Amiga. So that kind of dates me,
It does. It makes you a little bit older than me, but I'm with you on the Apple IIe. Yeah.
I'm a Gen Xer. That actually, the Amiga came out, I think, around the same time, a little after that. Literally,
Okay.
It was, 512K, you had to expand it. It had,
Floppy, an actual floppy disk.
Two. You had to use
You had
a
2,
small,
right?
Yeah, you had to use like a kickstart, a small 3.25-inch floppy disk to kind of get all the BIOS up and running, and
It
then
was literally a startup disk. They call it that now, but it used to be.
It was called Kickstart, and then you would put in another disk called Workbench, and that would kind of bring up this Windows Apple emulator.
You
But it
didn't
was
have
really
like a GUI though. It was a green and black screen.
and it was actually like the great thing about the Amiga, and for those who are familiar with it, is it had some inordinate number of colors, like 256,000 colors or whatever. And one of the things that they would give you is in the Workbench, which was literally like a Windows-like application, is they had digitized King Tut's mask. And it looked, even to this day, it looks super hot. Like if you type in Amiga King Tut, like you'll see the image. It still exists on the web. And so we actually got a printer, this NEC CP7 printer, and hooked it up. These giant cables, just ridiculously huge compared to what we have now. You can barely lift them. And it's a dot matrix printer. It's on like a track, and the thing didn't work. So my dad called up the shop we bought it from, and they essentially walked me and my dad through like the assembler code. We had to like type it in. I had no idea what I was doing. I don't think he did either. And then we saved it and put it into the right directory, and lo and behold, all of a sudden our Amiga was like spitting out printed stuff. And I got a modem. It was like I want to say it was like a 512 baud or some ridiculous low speed modem.
It's crazy.
Then it connects.
Like straight from that War Game movie.
It literally was just like that. And similar to like Matt Broderick and War Games, you had these things called bulletin board systems.
Yeah.
And BBSs you dial up, and they were like text based, and you could go into different, like Usenet was still around then, but you could go into different threaded categories about certain topics, like the beach or like 60s rock and roll or something, and you could like leave messages and talk to people, oftentimes in real time in chat environments.
Did they have chat environments, or was it just like that?
It
You
you
message
literally,
that you did fast.
it was similar, like, instant messaging, back in the
Wow.
day. You would dial up, but it was through the modem, and you would be able to not only post and respond, but you could, have threaded discussions and like real time chats with people back then. So, I'm like, how old was I? I was probably like 11 or 12,
Okay. Yeah.
so I'm literally like talking to all these people. And honestly, all the same dangerous things that you have to worry about with your kids now on the web existed then. And, we won't go into that, but,
Sketchy people, of
sketchy
course.
people offering sketchy things and giving you
Jeez.
access to sketchy photos and, trying to entice you to, meet them and stuff. I mean,
Oh,
all that
geez.
stuff. So I learned about that sort of literacy very early on. As a matter of
Wow.
fact, I was probably like 15 or 16, and I met, a couple females on the web.
You had
Yeah,
the early
literally.
Craigslist.
Literally. And I remember just my friend runs a PE firm now in Colorado, and we were just chatting, and he mentioned to me, "Hey, do you remember like when we met those girls on off the internet?" And we're like, we met at like a diner, and they were all very nice, and it was just like a very innocent meetup. Like, oh, we were all awkward, and you're totally like 15 or 16.
That's cool though. You meet up
But he
some
basically
fellow
said he was,
geeky people that
yeah,
were all on that bulletin board.
exactly. He basically said to me, "Casey, you're the first one I ever met who actually talked to anybody on the internet and met up with them." And this was in 1989 or something like that, or 90.
Man,
So
you're an
yeah,
adventurer.
I'm an early innovator in social media, apparently,
Yeah.
offline social media. So that really got me started with computers. And then when I got into college, I became enamored. I don't know if you heard that noise, Casey, if we wanted to start.
I didn't hear anything.
Okay. But I became enamored with, the idea of technology. I had a Smith Corona word processor
Wow.
I didn't take the Amiga with me to college. That eventually became a Macintosh. So I can't use the Smith Corona. And then,
That Amiga, though, I
HTML.
looked up that image you're talking about. That is a legit image of King Tut.
Yeah, totally. And like, that
Yeah.
was like 1985, like,
You think someone hand coded each one of those pixels?
yeah, probably. I mean, that was what they used to demonstrate the
Nerds.
graphical capability. Totally. And then I started getting HTML 1.0, and
Yeah.
the rest is history.
Yeah.
I got an offer to work at a startup in Amherst, Massachusetts after college that was doing information retrieval, which was
Wow.
pre-Google. And I said to people I do information retrieval, they actually thought I was talking about the movie Brazil with Robert De Niro, where there was like a group called information retrieval. And if this is such an esoteric film reference, most people don't
Right.
understand. But they didn't call it search. Like eBay was auction web. I remember when the engineers came in and said, "Look at the cool stuff Stanford's doing," and it was Google. And what we were doing is we were productizing a toolkit that sat on President Clinton's desk to search the congressional record. That was used by the Library of Congress
Wow.
to index all their data. And we were trying to and we actually successfully productized it such that it was a CD-ROM install, right, on a Windows desktop. It typically was Unix or Linux, run prior to that.
Wow.
And this is like literally, there was no SEM, there was no SEO. Like
Yeah.
in the late 90s, I had a company that did like search engine ranking. That's what we called it. And it was all like, literally, the stuff we did then, Casey, you cannot do now because you
No.
will be blacklisted. These are things like
Banned.
keyword,
Fast.
keyword stuffing, link farms, just, a lot of link sharing back and forth. Just meta tags being overstuffed with keywords, like putting the same word that you wanted to rank high in the footer in all white text in 1 point font. I mean, stuff that you cannot do now. That was the state of the art then, and it worked really well. And it was pre-Google. So
Yeah.
that kind of got me started. And then, through all the economic cycles that we've seen since I started in software in 1997, I've been through, and to the point of learning from your failures. I saw companies that startup that I worked for get acquired and, by a publicly traded company, which then sold off all its assets and became a technology agnostic internet professional services firm,
Jeez.
and then went bankrupt.
Oh, geez.
And I wasn't going to go and take a job cut. So I'm going to start my own business and do my own thing. So, I'm relentless. I guess that's who I am. And I have goals and I go for them. And I get it done.
Get it
So
done,
that's
man.
get it done. And now I'm
That's
just
the idea.
enamored with this AI, and this ML stuff the
Yeah.
last 4 years or so. I mean, getting me into that is, I'm a consultancy, right? Prior to starting this software company, and I was doing strategy. So like I'm the person the CMO would call up and be like, I don't understand any of this data. It's crap. But the analytics team isn't giving me what I need.
Right.
I need you to listen to what my future state vision is. And I assess the future state against the current state, figure out the gaps, do a roadmap, do a reference architecture, help them select technology, and then maybe I'd bring my guys and implement it. And I've
Right.
done this for some of the largest companies that everybody knows in the world.
Jeez.
And I started to realize a lot of my strategy was around started to become like me saying to them, hey, you've got to do ML and AI, and
Yep.
what's
Yep.
that? Or, oh, we're kind of doing that. And I realized that many AI projects, costly software, the need for rare skill sets that are very expensive and hard for a lot of companies
Super
to touch.
rare. Yeah.
Super rare, especially like the sub 1 billion in revenue, the mid market, the super
So
corporates, the mid markets, the
the
SMB,
rest of us.
everybody else.
Yeah. Everyone else.
Exactly. And so I said, there's got to be a need here. There's a need here to solve for that, to
Right.
democratize this capability for machine learning and AI, such that everybody has it. It's not just in the hands of the few. And so, that's going to help business. That's going to help our country. That's going to help the economy. That's going to help people, transition from the jobs they have now to the
Mm-hmm.
jobs of the future. Like literally, we can provide a capability where somebody who's never seen AI before, if I can teach them like one column is your label, all these columns you believe to be predictive of if the lead's going to churn or not, just drag and drop and you get a better model than a data scientist could hand code in minutes,
Yeah.
then we're going to help the world. So the idea being, at Squark, AI that helps humanity, right? In giving it to everybody, it'd be nice if everybody bought it, but I'm happy to give them free trials, right?
Yeah. Well,
So they can
you got to
check.
try things out and see what you think. Yep.
That's going to help people, and that's going to, and that was what a lot of the challenge was, right? A
Right.
lot of need for that, data scientist, the need for the expensive software, the need to have cross-functional teams to do this in big projects, and then to have long lead times to wait. That might have been true 2 or 3 years ago, but today that's no longer true. And so
Right.
all the sum culmination of my experiences have led me to this point of passion around, using AI to go beyond being descriptive and diagnostic and looking in the rearview mirror, to looking forward and being predictive and prescriptive, and being that clairvoyant force in your
Right.
company that knows what's going to happen before it happens. Like you'll know what happens before it happened. Another great
You're like
story
the
is,
data analytics whisperer.
yeah, one of our it's kind of funny you say that, because one of our key engineers, he works on Harvard's convolutional neural network. He can tell you on day 5 how an embryo will develop at day 37. It's
Wow.
just, without knowing the rest, it's learning from a lot of images. We were saying, well, what should your title be? And he's like, Chief Robot Whisperer. And
Yes.
we said, sure, no problem. But then he came back a few days later and said, well, I talked to my friends and they said that would be ridiculous if I was titled that. So
It's almost as cool as Chief Awesome Officer.
I like that. That's the CAO.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome Officer. That's going to be my new title. I like that.
Absolutely, man. Well, on that note, where can people connect with you? LinkedIn, Twitter. Where's the best places to reach out? And
Yeah.
URLs up
So,
there.
LinkedIn is always the best place to reach me.
Okay.
I'm Judah Phillips on LinkedIn.
Yep.
I accept invitations. If you're asking me to buy your stuff, like, I'm cool with that. But here's the thing. I will ask you to buy my stuff first. Like if somebody emails me like, will you buy my software? I'm like, sure, here's the link to my software, buy my software, and then we can talk, right? Unless
Right.
there's a real compelling need, so
Right.
I've gotten a few parlays from the sales teams who link in with me, like touche, but always willing to and happy to link in with, marketers. So LinkedIn is great. I'm on Twitter. I've been on there long enough. I am literally at Judah, like my first name.
What?
Yeah, at Judah. Now I don't have a ton of followers there because I was on in like 2007, 2008, maybe to 2010, and then I just didn't totally believe in the Twitter platform. So
Gotta bring it back.
I did a private thing. I just went I went private.
No.
Yeah, I went private for like 2 or 3 years. So during the big growth period of Twitter, I wasn't public, and so then I went public again, and I post every so often.
Okay.
It's usually It's usually stuff about the company or like art, interesting articles.
Hey, you don't have a beard in that photo on there either.
No, I
What's
don't.
up with that?
I don't. I think I had long sides.
It looks good though. You look like a wise sage when you have that on there.
That was actually a video interview at some show in Boston, so I screen captured that.
Yeah, you get some killer sideburns on that.
That's right. That's the beer in growing.
Well, you got another follower here. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, nice. I'll follow you back. And then, of course, you guys can always email me at Judah@Squark AI. So SQUARKAI.com. And those are really the easiest ways to get me. I'm always responsive on those channels. I don't do the book face too much, these days anymore. I have an Instagram account. I'm the original Judah, but I haven't posted anything on it.
Oh, you gotta get on that. You gotta put the fun stuff on there.
I gotta get on that.
Do the fun stuff. You got some good filters. It helps even people like us.
Well, I gotta admit, I did post once on it, but I deleted it. So I was out in Boston, and was it Jamba Juice or Naked Juice? One of those like juice companies that sells those, kind of fairly overpriced juices, right? Had like the big liter bottle, and they were given away for free if you created an Instagram account and posted a picture of the booth. And I said, okay, wait a minute, I can get a bottle if I get an Instagram account and post a picture of this juice. Right. And they said, yeah, we'll give you 2. And I said, okay. So I took the picture, I created original Judah, I posted it, they gave me 2 bottles, and I deleted it. So marketers, sometimes those programs don't always work out, right?
Yep. Sometimes they work.
Sometimes they don't.
You still shared it, even if,
temporarily, but I'm telling you about
ROI on that one. But
I'm not sure, because honestly, think of my top of mind recall. I think it was Naked Juice, but it might have been on Walla.
Right. It's like those really good commercials. You have no idea who did any of them. Yeah.
And the reality is that I buy the Suja juice or whatever it's called, the King of Greens.
Sure.
I don't buy any of those. They just have a lot less sugar, a little more pricey though.
Yeah, sugar's well, cool, man. This has been awesome. Like I've learned a bunch and got like pages of notes here, front and back. So thanks for coming and schooling me up. And it was good to catch up too. 10 years plus later, 17 years later when we first met.
It's just wild. That's wild. Well, it's not going to be that long, and I hope to, maintain the relationship. And
no. We're going to talk again in 17 years. It's worked so far. We'll just talk again in 2 decades. No, we'll keep up.
2036. We'll keep in touch. And I'd love to show you how our stuff works on Salesforce and Pardot, because we got users.
That would be cool. I would love to see that. Yeah.
Who just love it. They think it blows away what Salesforce and Pardot are doing right now.
We could do like a little joint session. Maybe do a joint webinar together. That'd be fun.
I would love to do that. Let's certainly we'll take on that investment ourselves with you and make it happen. I'd love to
make it happen, people. Make it work.
Do it. We'll be super successful.
Absolutely.
So just thrilled to have talked to you and your audience today. I hope my digressions and somewhat non-linearness as we discussed all this stuff was a good thing to listen to as you guys commute into work or commute back home, or just looking to learn a little bit more. And I'd love to hear from any of you guys who reach out. Mention that you're a fan of Casey as I am and his company, and I'll be smiling like the Cheshire Cat.
Yes.
Exactly. And let's help you take your businesses to the next level with prediction.
Totally, man. That's perfect. So, hey, if you learn something on this show, share this with someone, get that out to them so you can answer some questions. Click on the links in the show notes. Go check out the free trial. Check out all these different things. Learn. I mean, my brain has expanded today, so hopefully yours has too. And this has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We'll see you all next time.